Captain Marcus Riker sat quietly in the briefing room of the Starship Odyssey, looking over the latest communication logs. The quiet hum of the engines filled the room, a sound that had become so familiar over the years. His work as a diplomat and negotiator had brought him to many strange and distant planets, but today felt different. There was an air of anticipation surrounding the upcoming peace summit with the Zarnax, an ancient alien species known for their wisdom and powerful technology. Marcus had negotiated many treaties, but this one was special. The Zarnax were offering something more than just peace. They had promised a gift. The room door slid open, breaking his thoughts. A tall alien stepped inside, wearing the ornate uniform of a Zarnax envoy. His face was covered by an intricate mask, as was customary for their species. Marcus stood to greet him, offering a respectful nod. "Captain Riker," the envoy said in a deep, rumbling voice. "The Zarnax thank you for your patience. The gift has arrived." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "The gift?" The envoy gestured to the side, and two attendants walked into the room, carrying a small, hovering pod. The pod was no larger than a child's toy, but the soft glow surrounding it suggested something important inside. As it came closer, the attendants opened the pod, revealing the figure inside. At first, Marcus thought it was a child. The small alien woman inside was no taller than a human child, with delicate features and bright blue skin that shimmered in the light. Her eyes, however, were the most striking feature. They were large, nearly glowing, and seemed to shimmer with an intelligence far beyond what her size suggested. She looked up at Marcus with a mixture of curiosity and caution. This is the gift?" Marcus asked, his voice laced with surprise. The Zarnax envoy nodded solemnly. "She is one of our kind, a representative of her species. We entrust her to you as a token of goodwill and a symbol of our alliance." Marcus blinked. "A token of goodwill? A gift?" The envoy stepped closer. "Yes, she is a being of great value to her people. Her species has an incredible connection to the natural world. She possesses abilities that are difficult to explain, but you will understand in time." Marcus felt a sudden wave of discomfort. He had been expecting a ceremonial relic or perhaps a symbolic gesture, but this was different. A living creature, no bigger than a small human child, was being handed over as a gift. He was about to protest when the small alien woman shifted in the pod, her eyes locking onto his. Without warning, she climbed out of the pod and onto his leg, clinging to him with surprising strength. The room fell silent. Marcus stood frozen, unsure how to respond. The alien woman didn't speak, but her grip on his leg was firm. She simply looked up at him, her large eyes full of curiosity. What do I do with her?" Marcus finally asked, his voice more bewildered than commanding. "She will stay with you," the envoy said. "Her kind forms deep bonds with those they trust. She will be with you now, Captain Riker." "Until when?" Marcus asked, his confusion growing. "Until she decides otherwise," the envoy replied. "She will help you, and she will learn from you. This is our gift to you, Captain Riker. Protect her, and she will protect you." The envoy bowed deeply, then turned and walked out of the room, leaving Marcus standing there, feeling more confused than ever. The alien woman, still clinging to his leg, made no move to let go. Her grip was gentle, yet firm, as though she had no intention of leaving. Marcus glanced around the room, as if hoping someone would explain this strange turn of events. But there was no one. It was just him and this small, blue alien woman. The whole situation felt like a bizarre dream. He sighed deeply, reaching down and gently lifting the alien woman off his leg. She didn't fight it, but she looked at him with wide eyes, as if waiting for him to say something. Her small hands rested on his arm as he held her. "All right, let's get this straight," Marcus muttered, more to himself than to her. "You're not a prisoner, you're not I don't know, a pet, you're a gift, and I'm supposed to take care of you." The alien woman blinked, her eyes full of silent understanding. She didn't say anything, of course. She couldn't, but there was something in the way she held his gaze that told him she understood exactly what he was saying. He took a step toward the door. "Come on then," he said. "Let's get you settled. I guess we'll figure this out together." As he walked toward his quarters, the alien woman stayed close by, following his every move with those glowing eyes. The whole situation felt surreal, but at the same time, there was something oddly comforting about her presence. Maybe it was because she seemed so trusting, so dependent on him, even though they hadn't exchanged a single word. Once inside his quarters, Marcus set her down on the bed, where she immediately curled up into a ball, as if she were trying to make herself comfortable. He paused for a moment, watching her. She wasn't what he had expected, but she seemed harmless enough. Maybe there was something more to this gift than he realized. He sat down at his desk, still trying to make sense of the situation. But before he could do much else, the small alien woman climbed onto the bed, then to the floor, and finally made her way over to his leg again, clinging to him as if she had no intention of ever letting go. Marcus couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. All right, he muttered, scratching his head. "I guess you're staying with me then." For the next few days, Marcus tried to continue his work, but the alien woman was always there, always clinging to him. At first, it was just an inconvenience. But as time went on, he began to notice something strange. Whenever she was close, his mood seemed to lift. It was as if her presence had a calming effect on him. She didn't speak, but her steady gaze and quiet nature made him feel less alone in the vast emptiness of space. And so, their strange partnership began. Marcus, the human diplomat, and Zara, the small alien woman who clung to his leg, were now bound together in ways neither of them fully understood. But Marcus had a feeling that this was only the beginning. Whatever the Zarnax had intended with this gift, it was clear that it would change both their lives in ways they could never have imagined. Marcus sat at his desk in his quarters, staring at the data screens in front of him. The peaceful hum of the ship's engines was the only sound in the room, yet his mind was far from peaceful. Ever since the Zarnax had delivered Zara, the small alien woman, as a gift, nothing had been the same. His life had become more complicated, more unpredictable. Every time he tried to focus on his work, she was there, clinging to his leg or sitting by his side, her large, glowing eyes watching him intently. At first, Marcus thought it was just a phase. She was a new arrival, and perhaps she was simply adjusting to her new environment. But days turned into weeks, and the small alien woman never strayed far from him. Her grip, though gentle, was unyielding. Whether he was sitting at his desk, walking through the corridors, or even lying down to sleep, Zara was always there, at his side or attached to his leg. It was as if she was afraid to let go, to venture away from him. Though strange, Marcus couldn't help but notice how comforting her presence was. There was something undeniably soothing about the way she quietly observed him, the way her calm energy seemed to balance his own. In the chaotic world of intergalactic diplomacy, her silence was a rare and calming presence. One morning, as Marcus prepared to leave for a meeting with the Zarnax leadership, he felt Zara's grip tighten around his leg. She had been unusually quiet the past few hours, but now she was looking up at him with those wide, knowing eyes. Her gaze was intense, almost as if she understood the importance of what was about to happen. He paused for a moment, looking down at her. "I don't know why you're so attached to me," he murmured, bending down to gently lift her off his leg. "But I suppose it's too late to ask now." Zara made no sound but stared up at him, her small hands gripping the fabric of his pants. There was an unmistakable trust in her eyes, a quiet plea that he couldn't ignore. With a sigh, Marcus carefully placed her back on his bed. "Stay here, all right. I won't be gone long." He knew it was futile. He didn't expect her to stay put. As he turned to leave, he felt her tugging at the hem of his shirt. He glanced back, and sure enough, Zara was standing at the door, watching him with a determined expression. "All right," Marcus said with a chuckle. "I guess you're coming with me." It was becoming clear to Marcus that Zara was not just some simple gift. She was more than that. She had an unexplainable connection to him. There was a bond between them that he couldn't put into words. It wasn't just the physical attachment, but something deeper, something he could feel in his gut whenever she was around. He wasn't sure what it was, but he couldn't deny it. As they made their way to the Zarnak's meeting room, Marcus couldn't help but feel a bit self-conscious. The Zarnaks, with their tall, elegant forms and advanced intellect, must have wondered what he was doing with this small, seemingly fragile alien woman clinging to his leg. He knew they had gifted Zara to him as a symbol of peace, but her behavior, so dependent on him, made him feel like a caretaker rather than a diplomat. The Zarnak's leaders were already seated when Marcus arrived, their eyes gleaming with intelligence as they studied him. He bowed slightly, acknowledging their presence, but before he could say anything, one of the Zarnaks spoke. "Captain Riker, we trust your gift has been to your satisfaction." The Zarnak's leader's voice was calm, measured, yet filled with an underlying intensity. Marcus nodded, trying to steady his nerves. "Yes, thank you," but before he could finish, Zara let out a soft noise. It wasn't quite a sound, more like a hum, but it caught the attention of everyone in the room. Zara had lifted her head and was looking around at the Zarnaks, her eyes shining with curiosity. She stepped forward, still attached to Marcus's leg, her small feet padding silently on the floor. The Zarnak's leaders exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Marcus could feel the tension in the room. He wasn't sure what Zara was doing, but he could sense that something was happening. Her gaze was locked on the leader closest to her, her eyes filled with a strange intensity. "Zara," Marcus said softly, trying to keep her calm. "What's going on?" Zara didn't respond. Instead, she reached up with one small hand, gently touching the leg of the Zarnak's leader who was closest to her. The leader froze, and for a moment there was an eerie silence in the room. Then, with a soft breath, the Zarnak's leader spoke. "She has sensed something. It is rare, but she has the ability to connect with others, to sense their intentions." Marcus was taken aback. "What do you mean?" The Zarnak's leader nodded, glancing at Zara. "She is not just a symbol of peace, Captain Riker. She is a representative of her species, a being with a unique ability to connect with the energy of those around her. It is her gift, but also her burden." Marcus looked down at Zara, who was now standing perfectly still, her gaze never leaving the leader's leg. He had no idea what she had sensed, but the way the Zarnak's leader was reacting made him uneasy. "What does this mean for me?" Marcus asked, his voice low. The leader turned to face him. "It means that her connection to you is more important than you realize. Zara was chosen for you, Captain. She will be your guide, your protector, and your ally. There are forces at play that you do not yet understand, and Zara is the key." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He had known there was something more to Zara than a simple gift, but now it was clear. Her attachment to him wasn't just a random occurrence, it was part of a greater plan. The question now was, what exactly was this plan, and why had the Zarnaks chosen him to be the one to fulfill it? As the meeting continued, Marcus tried to focus on the discussions at hand, but his mind kept drifting back to Zara. What did the Zarnaks mean when they said she was the key? And why was she so intent on staying close to him? There was something he was missing, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. When the meeting finally ended, Marcus left the room, Zara still attached to his leg. She had not spoken, of course. She never did. But her presence was undeniable, and Marcus found that he was beginning to rely on it more than he cared to admit. As strange as it was, having her there, clinging to him, was somehow comforting. He couldn't help but wonder if this was just the beginning. If Zara's connection to him was part of a larger, more dangerous game, what role was he really playing? What was he supposed to do with the small alien woman who refused to let go? Marcus sat quietly in his quarters, staring at the blank data screen in front of him. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. He had spent the last few days trying to make sense of Zara's strange behavior, her constant presence, and the Zarnax's cryptic words. The more he thought about it, the more he felt like he was caught in something bigger than himself, something he didn't fully understand. Zara was still with him, of course. She hadn't left his side since the peace summit. In fact, she hadn't let go of his leg for more than a few minutes at a time. Her grip was firm yet gentle, as though she knew she had to stay close to him. Sometimes, when he was deep in thought or lost in his work, he'd feel her tug on his pant leg, as if reminding him that she was there. It was both comforting and unsettling at the same time. He had tried to continue with his duties as best as he could, but Zara's presence was a constant distraction. He couldn't focus without wondering what her attachment meant. Why was she so determined to stay with him? What was the purpose behind this strange bond that had formed between them? It had been 2 weeks since the Zarnax had delivered Zara to him. In that time, he had learned a little more about her species, but there were still so many unanswered questions. The Zarnax had explained that Zara's kind had an extraordinary connection to nature and a deep understanding of the universe. They were not only highly intelligent, but also capable of sensing the energy of other beings, of reading their intentions. They had told Marcus that Zara had been chosen for him, that their bond was not random but part of something larger, a plan that had been set in motion long before they had met. Marcus rubbed his temples, trying to clear his head. What did that even mean? A plan, chosen for him. He was just a diplomat. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't even sure what Zara was capable of, let alone why she had been sent to him. It felt like every time he asked himself questions, more popped up in return. He glanced over at Zara, who was sitting quietly on the edge of his bed, her large eyes fixed on him. She didn't speak, but her gaze was intense, as though she was waiting for him to understand something. He couldn't shake the feeling that she knew more than she let on. There was a certain wisdom in her eyes, a quiet knowledge that seemed far beyond her size and appearance. Without thinking, Marcus stood up and walked over to her. "Zara," he said softly, kneeling down in front of her. "What's going on? Why are you with me?" "What am I supposed to do with you?" Zara didn't respond. She just stared up at him with those wide, glowing eyes, her hands resting on her lap. For a moment, Marcus felt like he was speaking to a child, trying to understand something that was beyond his grasp. But he knew she wasn't a child. She was something else entirely. He reached out slowly, gently placing his hand on her small shoulder. She didn't pull away, but her body seemed to relax under his touch. It was as though, despite her silence, she trusted him. The realization struck him like a wave. She wasn't just a passive being. She was aware. She had a purpose. And somehow that purpose was tied to him. Marcus stood up, running a hand through his hair. There had to be more to this than just her being a gift. What had the Zarnax meant when they said she was the key? The key to what? And why did it feel like he was being pulled into something he didn't fully understand? As if in response to his thoughts, Zara stood up, her small form moving with surprising agility. She reached out to him, her hands gently grasping the hem of his shirt. It was a silent plea, but Marcus understood. She wanted him to come with her. Without a word, he followed her as she led him out of his quarters. She walked confidently down the hallway, her small feet making little sound as they moved across the metal floors. Marcus, though confused, found himself trusting her in a way he couldn't explain. There was something about her that felt right, something about her presence that gave him a sense of calm, of certainty, even when everything around him seemed uncertain. They reached the ship's observation deck, a large room with windows that offered a breathtaking view of the stars. The ship was traveling at a steady pace through the vast emptiness of space, the distant glow of nearby planets and stars visible in the distance. Marcus stepped closer to the window, his hands resting on the cool surface. Zara moved to his side, standing quietly beside him. She didn't speak, but her presence was enough. Marcus could feel her connection to the stars, to the universe itself, as if she was one with it. It was a strange sensation, almost as if she were drawing something from the cosmos, something ancient and powerful. He turned to her, his voice barely a whisper. "What is this? What are you trying to show me?" Zara looked up at him, her eyes glowing softly in the dim light. For a moment, Marcus thought he saw something flicker in her gaze, a flash of recognition, of understanding. Then, as if in answer to his question, she reached out and touched the glass with one small hand. Marcus watched, fascinated, as a faint shimmer appeared where her hand made contact with the window. The shimmer spread out, slowly at first, then faster, until the entire surface of the glass was covered in a strange, glowing pattern. It looked almost like a map, a star chart with lines and symbols that Marcus couldn't understand. The patterns moved, shifting and changing as if they were alive. He stepped closer, his breath catching in his throat. "What is this? What does it mean?" Zara didn't answer. Instead, she stepped back, her hand falling to her side. The glow on the glass faded, leaving only the faintest trace of its presence behind. Marcus turned to her, his mind racing. "Is this a map? A guide to something? Zara, what are you showing me?" For a moment, Zara stood silently, her gaze meeting his with an intensity that left him speechless. Then, with a small sigh, she turned and began to walk away, her steps slow and deliberate. Marcus hesitated for a moment before following her once more. She led him down several corridors, through a series of locked doors, and finally to the ship's lower levels. They stopped in front of a large, secured chamber. The door was locked, but Zara didn't hesitate. She reached out, her hand resting against the door, and it slid open silently. Marcus followed her inside, his heart pounding in his chest. The room was dimly lit, filled with ancient-looking artifacts and strange technology. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it rested a glowing crystal, something unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. It pulsed with an eerie light, its energy radiating outward in waves. Zara walked toward the pedestal, her eyes fixed on the crystal. She stopped just before it, turning to face Marcus. For the first time since he had met her, she spoke, her voice soft but clear. "It's here," she said, her voice carrying a sense of finality. "The key." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "The key to what?" Zara didn't answer. Instead, she stepped forward, her hand reaching toward the crystal. As her fingers made contact with it, the crystal began to glow brighter, its energy swirling around them both. Marcus watched in awe, a mixture of fear and wonder filling him. What had he stumbled upon? What was this crystal, and what was Zara trying to tell him? As the crystal pulsed with energy, Marcus felt a sudden surge of understanding, an overwhelming sense that everything was connected, that this moment was part of something far greater than he could comprehend. Zara had brought him here for a reason. She was the key, and he was meant to be part of something much larger than himself. The question was, what would they do with this power once they unlocked it? Marcus stood frozen as the crystal pulsed with energy, its soft glow illuminating the dark room. Zara, her small hand resting on its surface, stood still, her body tense, as though she were waiting for something to happen. The air around them hummed with an almost electric feeling, a sense of expectation that made Marcus's heart race. He stepped closer, his eyes locked on the crystal. It seemed to be alive, its surface rippling with energy, its light shifting and changing. The patterns that had appeared on the observation deck were now clearer, floating in his mind like fragments of a forgotten dream. Zara didn't look at him as he approached. She remained focused on the crystal, her eyes glowing faintly. It was as if the two of them were connected, like the crystal had drawn her in, like it had a hold on her. And now, she was giving that same power to him. He reached out hesitantly, his fingers brushing against hers. For a moment nothing happened, but then as soon as their hands touched, a surge of energy shot through him. It was like nothing he had ever felt, raw, powerful, and yet strangely calming at the same time. His mind expanded, the room around him fading into nothingness as images, sensations, and emotions flooded his consciousness. He saw flashes of distant stars, of galaxies far beyond his reach. He felt the pulse of the universe itself, the ebb and flow of energy that connected all things. But amid these cosmic visions, one thing stood out: Zara. She was at the center of it all, her presence tied to the very fabric of space and time. She was more than just a small alien woman. She was the key to unlocking a force beyond imagination, a force that could shape the future of the universe. He staggered back, his breath coming in short gasps. The connection between him and Zara was like a bridge stretching across an infinite expanse. It was as if he had touched something ancient, something powerful, something he couldn't fully comprehend. Zara slowly withdrew her hand from the crystal, her eyes meeting his. The glow in her eyes had dimmed slightly, but there was still an unmistakable intensity in her gaze. It was as though she had seen something in him, something that he hadn't yet realized about himself. "Zara," Marcus whispered, his voice hoarse. "What is this? What's happening?" Zara didn't answer at first. She stepped back, turning her attention to the crystal once more. With a soft sigh, she reached out, her fingers brushing against the surface again. The crystal flared to life, its energy expanding outward as though it were responding to her touch. "This is the heart," Zara said softly, her voice carrying a weight that Marcus had never heard before. "The heart of the universe. It is the source of all energy, all life. It binds everything together, every star, every planet, every being." Marcus stared at her, his mind struggling to keep up. "The heart of the universe, but I don't understand. How does it connect to us? To me?" Zara turned to face him, her expression serious. "You are the one who was chosen, Marcus. The Zarnax knew this. They sent me to you because you are part of something greater. You are the link that will connect the heart to the world beyond. The crystal. It needs you. It needs your strength to survive, to awaken." Marcus felt his heart race. "I don't know if I'm ready for this. I'm just a diplomat, a negotiator. I don't know how to wield this kind of power." Zara stepped closer, her small hand resting on his arm. Her touch was warm, grounding. "You have already done more than you know, Marcus. You've opened the door. Now all you have to do is walk through it." Marcus took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. He felt the weight of her words, the gravity of what she was asking him to do. The responsibility that was now on his shoulders felt overwhelming. But at the same time, he felt something else, something deep within him, a feeling that had been growing ever since he had met Zara. A sense that this was his path, that somehow this was what he was meant to do. He glanced at the crystal once more, its light pulsing in time with his heartbeat. He reached out, his hand hovering just above the surface. For a moment he hesitated, unsure if he could really go through with this. But then he remembered everything that had led him here, everything that had brought him to this point. Zara, the Zarnax, the bond they shared. He couldn't ignore it any longer. With a deep breath, he placed his hand on the crystal. The moment his fingers made contact, a surge of energy shot through him. This time it was different. It was stronger, more intense. He could feel the heart responding to him, connecting with him as if it were recognizing him as its true keeper. The energy coursed through his veins, filling him with a sense of power and purpose that was both terrifying and exhilarating. His vision blurred as the crystal's energy enveloped him, pulling him into a vision. He saw the universe in a way he never had before, its vastness, its infinite possibilities. He saw civilizations rise and fall, stars born and die, galaxies collide and merge. But through it all, he saw one constant: Zara. She was always there, a guiding force, a protector. And beside her, he stood, not as a mere spectator, but as an active participant in the great dance of the universe. He felt the weight of the heart's power settle into him, filling the empty spaces within him, making him whole. He wasn't just a diplomat anymore. He wasn't just a negotiator. He was something more, a key, a link between the heart and the world beyond. And with that realization came an overwhelming sense of clarity. He understood now. He understood his purpose. But there was still one question left unanswered. "What do we do now?" Marcus asked, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside him. Zara looked at him, her eyes filled with something that resembled pride. "Now we begin the work. The heart has chosen you, Marcus. You are the one who will guide the universe into a new age. Together, we will unlock its full potential. Together, we will change everything." Marcus felt the weight of her words, but he also felt a surge of determination. He had no idea where this path would lead, but he knew one thing for certain: he wasn't alone. Zara was with him, and together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. He turned to her, a sense of purpose filling him. "Then let's get started." Zara smiled, her small hand resting in his. Together, as they stood there, the heart pulsing softly beneath their hands, Marcus knew that this was only the beginning. There was still much to learn, much to discover, but with Zara by his side he felt ready. Ready to face the unknown, ready to shape the future. The universe was waiting, and they were ready to answer its call.